Hey, everybody. It's a new year, and that means it's a new episode of Too Many Men. My name is Alison Lucan. I am delighted to be here I actually save up. I'm just going to keep pimping this out every time we have an episode because this newsletter is the highlight of my week. And I was on a plane for a long time yesterday and I got to read the last two, and they just bring me joy. There's so much feeding of the soul, so much feeding of the mind, and so much clever, witty, fun talk about hockey. The author, of course, is Sara Civian. Sara, how are you in this new year?
I'm great. New year, same us. We're ready to go. Good to see you guys. We got Allison on the East Coast for a special game. So love when she's in the atmosphere.
Are you wearing an aura ring now?
I am. Yes, my boyfriend got it for me for my birthday. And guess what, guys?
Tell me.
To everyone who says I look old, my cardiovascular age is 7 years younger than my real age. So suck it.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
See, I know like they're the hype, the Oura rings, but it's like the only way to tell your age, in my opinion, still is like a Wii Sports fitness test. If I can get under my age with that, I'm fucking golden. Like we all compete for it.
You gotta go bowling. And they tell me I'm obese. It's like,
Oh
all
my
right,
God.
My first one, I got like
motivation.
60 on it. And I was like, I'm never doing this again because I didn't know how to do the home runs. Now I'm like low 30s, which I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get back into my 20s.
We got this.
Well, folks, our other co-host needs no introduction. There she is, folks, our fitness expert,
That's me.
the best dog mom, and the most festive, perhaps, Instagrams of the holidays. We celebrate the wonderful Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi.
How is your fitness guidance for others going besides yourself with We
Oh, I
Fitness?
mean, it's amazing. I'm I can't stop. I'm the most fit person around.
You
Can't stop,
are.
won't
What's this? You
stop.
got the stepper.
Yeah.
You got things going on over there.
Yeah. I have my bullshit. Meanwhile, my moron boyfriend's out here running fucking 5Ks and withering away, but like he's the fitness one, and then I look like the oldest person on earth next to him, but hey.
You do not. This is
No.
insane.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
No, I mean like
No.
I
it's
was
very funny to me, like, because I'm anything but fit. Like I'm like a very not fit person, but
you're mentally fit.
I'm mentally fit. Oh my God. I'd win an
And
Olympic fucking medal.
and also you're gorgeous. I was noticing that in particular in your
Oh my
holiday
God.
posts. So I
Thank
don't
you.
want to hear that think you look old. That's insane. All right, you guys, there's so much to happen and talk about while we were on break. It's almost like hockey was like just filling up our stockings and our Hanukkah baskets, if that's a thing, with gifts of things to talk about. Sara, I have a gift coming to you. I can't remember if I told you this. So you have
Okay.
to send me your mailing address after we're done here. But I have a gift for you, courtesy of Benny Drawbars, who also helps us announce your very favorite segment. Sara, what time is it?
It's time for a bit of news.
Bit
Grasshopper mode.
Bit O news. Here we go. We have all kinds of stuff to talk about. We'll pick on some highlights here of what's happened since we were last with you. So some of this has been out there, but we want to talk about it. And one I want to get to right away is we have a couple contracts. And the first one I want to break down, and Shayna, you are our finance guru, but is the Frank Vatrano extension in Anaheim. This is pretty interesting. It's a 3-year, $18 million extension, but it is loosely and lightly a little bit like the Shohei Ohtani contract in that money isn't necessarily being paid while the player is presumed to be playing or even living in the exact same state as the team for which he is playing. Walk us through this. Walk us through what it means for the team and the player, and if you think this is the beginning of a trend in hockey.
Yeah, so we're seeing like deferred salaries here or there, but they're minimal, right? It's the difference of a $4.5 million cap
Wait,
hit
tell
to a
people what happened. Tell
oh,
people what
right,
it
sorry.
is.
Frank Vatrano signed a 3-year contract worth 18 million in total, but his cap hit instead of being 6 million on the books is going to be, I think it's 4.57 each year of the deal. And it's because they're deferring salary to like over a longer period of time. For him, I believe it's 10 years. So we're seeing this trickle into the NHL. We've seen it elsewhere, but the NHL is the least exciting salary cap of all of them with the least creativity. But we were seeing it with guys like Jacob Slavin. It was so minimal that it wasn't even talked about. And I think Seth Jarvis's deal too, because Eric Tulsky is brilliant, and now others are taking note. But we're seeing these trickle in where it's like very minimal, like it's an extra year or two, and that will just bring the cap down a little bit. For Vatrano, it's a little bit of a different situation because it's kind of working around those tax codes in California because they are, the upper echelon. It's like I
Yes.
had it in my head and then like it comes out of my
Echelon.
mouth. Echelon.
Echelon.
Oh, geez.
We'll allow it. We'll allow that
We'll
one.
allow
That
it.
was
You were getting us close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was like, I know how to say this word, and then just flatlined. Anyway, it's in the top tier of taxes, basically, that we always hear about it, right? Like the advantage of playing in Florida versus California. So here, if he has his deferred salary go off such a long time and he knows he's not going to live in California when he's done with his career, then the later years of that income is going to be taxed elsewhere. So he's going to be able to take home more of it. It's definitely crafty. And I know some are like, well, look, the Ducks are going to be a cap team soon, so this will help them in the long run. It might. I don't know how much they're going to be up against it versus a team like Vegas, but it's just a way to get creative with the cap and also benefit the player in the process. So maybe other teams can take note if you're ever worried about, not getting the same take home being in a taxable state versus not.
So, Sara, I want to ask you because noted very public agent Alan Walsh didn't love this deal. And it's kind of like the question people always ask about if you won the lottery, would you take it all up front or would you take the payments over time? And you could argue, right, that maybe it's easier to manage your money. You aren't going to spend it all at once if you get, an amount every year for a longer time. But then the flip argument is that if you get it all at once, then you have more you can invest and maybe it equals more long term.
Yeah.
Sara, if you were offered this contract, would you sign it or would you want it all up front?
Well, he's not going to get it all up front. Like, that's just not the reality of this current situation. And he said on What Chaos yesterday that he wanted to stay in Anaheim. He didn't want to go to New York. And DJ Bean was like, aren't you so glad you didn't end up in New York? And he was cracking up. That was a great interview. I really like him. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think he was going to get that up front. You know what I mean? It's different. The thing is, I see the comparisons with baseball, but there's much fewer monies in hockey. So it's kind of like that was going to be a battle that would last forever. Vatrano seems like just he wants to come in, he wants to score goals, he wants to be on to start be at the core of a winning team, and it really looks like they are doing a good job like building that team around him now. Like, look, everybody, my Ducks are fucking soaring. Finally, you all laughed at me. They could make the playoffs now. And I think this is the perfect time to sign a contract like this. I mean, if I'm the player, you're in a tough spot where we're changing with the cap salary. We're changing the structure, like with Eric Tulsky coming in and forcing people to have a brain. So I think you take this. Alan's going to say that because he wants to draw public attention to the fact that it's not all sunshine and roses. That's his job. And Alan does a really good job at his job. But I think I take this.
Okay, but all things being equal, if you knew you could get either, would you rather have all the money up front or would you rather have it paid out over time? If the choice was truly yours and 100% yours.
Well, as a freelancer now who gets paid every single day on my own website, I think I'd probably take it up front because that's what I'm choosing to do.
See, I would go opposite. I'm going to go opposite here because this isn't Frank Vatrano's first NHL contract. He has a lot of money saved up from multiple NHL contracts. He already has millions.
You presume. We don't know what he does with his money.
Yes. But like you look at some former players too, and some don't just jump into a front office role. And like at this point, the way I see Vatrano going, I wouldn't be surprised if like he could have another career after this, right? Like whether it's in media, whether it's in something. But I think we see sometimes with players, it's such like a drop off, like when their careers end, like what do they do from here? And I think this kind of gives him and his family a little bit of a bubble because.
But I'm not asking about him. I'm asking you. What would you
Well,
do?
if I'm in his position as a player who's been in the league.
If you were offered a contract.
Okay. I'm me, my standard poor self, and I'm offered a contract.
Correct. Do you want it all up front or do you want it paid out over time?
No, I still want it over time.
Interesting.
It like forces you to save it differently because that money that's coming into you is still a shit ton. Like that is money that's unthinkable to someone like me. So if you get that paid out over time, it's going to be even better.
Okay. Well, there we go. I would take it up front personally and then invest it over time. Okay. Let's move on to another contract. This is again something that happened while we were on vacay or holiday. But the Colorado Avalanche, as we talked about last episode, completely overhauled their goaltending department. And then after what was it, like one game, basically said, okay, good, we're fine now. And signed McKenzie Blackwood to a 5-year extension worth 5.25 per year. I don't know that I mind the contract in theory, but like the sample size, I mean, it's working out so far. But Sara, did you like this deal when you heard about it?
I mean, it's so funny. I just published an article that's like one thing on the to-do list of every NHL team, and it was kind of like give management a pat on the back for the Avalanche, not because of the contract, but because they did in 2 weeks what some management acts like you can never do ever. Like they accomplished in 2 weeks a complete overhaul of the goaltending. Now they're above 900 combined. They're really good at goaltending, and the problem is completely fixed. Do I think this is a bit of a stretch with Blackwood, given his inconsistencies in New Jersey? Yes. Do I think New Jersey had a completely sparse defense at the time Blackwood was in net, and that like he was just starting out and there was like the COVID drama, whatever with him? Yeah, I think maybe he saw the horrors in San Jose and turned over a new leaf. I think it's a good contract. I'm here for it because you know what they'll do if it doesn't work out, trade him and they'll figure it out. It seems like.
Sara, it almost sounded like you said the horse. I know what you said. Shayna, do you like this contract? My mind is just mush.
This is why, like, we can't ever do morning podcasts, or we should only do morning podcasts. I don't know. I like the contract.
In San Jose.
Okay. McKenzie Blackwood. No, I like this deal. There's two things I like about it. One, Colorado doesn't bet on goaltending often. If you go back through it, like Georgiev, it was a short-term deal. Kemper was a trade acquisition. I think he had 2 years left on his deal. Like, they don't often spend big on goaltending. So if they are here, I tend to believe they have a reason to, because I think that they're very smart front office. The other part of it is, like, you look at New Jersey goalies over the years and how many have failed there, even if they were good elsewhere and then went to New Jersey to die. Like, I know Markstrom's playing really well right now after a tough start, which was a little bit like worrisome to me because I'm like, oh no, is this more of the same trend? I have really big questions about their goalie development in New Jersey and goalie coaching. So it's not that much of a shock for me to see him go do so well somewhere else. And he did well in San Jose, which is one of the worst defenses in the league for the last couple of years, and he managed it really well. I think we know he has all this raw skill, right? He's someone that was highly touted for a reason and just didn't live up to his potential. And I think the Sharks found a better way to channel it, that's what the Avs are betting on. It's like looking at everything. The inconsistency year to year, yes, it's concerning. But if you know he has that talent and now you figured out how to make it work and you're the Avs and you don't need, an Andre Vasilevsky in net, I think it all like works. And it makes sense too with like the Joey non-apostrophe Decord, his deal, it's very in line with it because I look at that deal and I'm like, well, that's a 1A without a ton of experience. He's not, oh my God, you're bona fide starter. And I feel like Blackwood's kind of on like a similar plane.
Excellent. All right. That's the two contracts that we've got. Now let's go to people who don't have contracts anymore. And a gentleman who got a lump of coal in his stocking versus a Christmas gift. And that is the coaching situation in Detroit. And Sara, our long national nightmare is over. Lalonde is out and Todd McLellan is announced. It's been reported that Lalonde didn't even get to talk to his players because it was obviously during the holiday break when every team, except for the Dallas Stars, apparently is supposed to not be doing hockey activities. Sara, the Detroit Red Wings have been winning since the change after a disastrous start where the first game under McLellan was a very bad loss, booed off the ice. Do you think this was the right move for the Red Wings?
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be this good, but it can't ever get that bad again now that we know what the actual floor of the team is. Like when you look back at some of those bad losses from the Red Wings, just the fundamentals of the game weren't there at all. I'm questioning, like, is the roster really not this talented? Then I'm like, no, there's DeBrincat, there's Larkin, and there's Lucas Raymond, who's having a great season. There's Moritz Seider. There's like so many people that it shouldn't be this bad, right? The penalty kill in particular, especially if you're having all these like veteran players that are I don't know, that's where they should shine on the penalty kill. But it was horrible. And then McLellan takes over and for probably an amalgamation of reasons, suddenly they have a functional penalty kill, and look how far it's taken them. There's that, and there's like sustained zone time. It's all these things. You wonder, does he have different systems? I don't think they disliked Lalonde that much or something, but I don't think he was really motivating them, I guess. But at the same time, the difference is palpable, and it's not always going to be like you're going to go 5-1 every single stretch of the season, but it just can't ever get as bad as it was. Like, I think this is where the team should have been all along. So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, let's believe now. Like, no, I'm kind of sus, as what the kids are saying, as at looking at how bad they let themselves go and at all.
Another team that got a lump of coal across the board, Shayna, is the team in your backyard, and that is the New York Rangers, who continue to not be good. And now Chris Kreider is on IR, and they picked up Kaliev off of LA when he was put on waivers. Shayna, where are the Rangers at? Is their national nightmare continuing?
Yes. Okay, with Kaliev, it shows like the tale of like how you need to find a way to maximize your young talent if they're not going to work out by you before their value drops off. And I look at him and Wallstrom and how they both were claimed off waivers. To me, they should have been a 1-for-1 trade last year. They like that. It should have been like new scenario, new nothing, and now the teams get nothing out of it. And I know his training camp injury plays into it, and that's why his value is where it is. But I just feel like that was a mess of a situation. I think more teams should have claimed him. It makes sense the Rangers did because they need help on the wing, especially the right side. But the Kreider situation, like, we need to talk about this for a second because the entire year we are seeing the Rangers call out players for being bad, right? Like, we're seeing that with their memo and the drama, and Kreider and Trouba are the two that are named in it. But the entire time, the organization knows, and the public does to an extent, because Kreider was already out with injury, that he was dealing with a back injury. It does not make sense to me the way entire situation is being handled, because I get they might not want to shut him down for the year right now, or if they are going to trade him, like, do they want to reclaim some value on him and say, hey, he's not that bad, it's just the injury. But I don't understand why he is a player getting called out in the memo with a healthy scratch against the Devils when the team knows he's hurt and you can visibly see it. Like, I think the most obvious, it was that game against the Panthers at the end of December. He was on the power play and you could just see he was not moving right, and you could see him not playing his game. So it makes sense that they're going to let him rest because it's clearly holding him back, and a back injury is tough to heal from. And in the position he plays, players can get, they're more susceptible to if you're just taking a million cross checks to the back. But why is it that, like, it's not just being discussed as he's having a bad year, he's hurt, versus we're gonna like embarrass him and put his name out there and call him out for being bad when we know he's dealing with this injury? I don't understand it.
Sara, 3 wins only in the last 12 for the Rangers. Now, they do get a point in their last game in Dallas, but Dallas comes all the way back yesterday and just demolishes them and wins in overtime when they are depleted with injuries. Would a coaching change fix this? What needs to happen in New York?
Like, not even God himself can answer that question. What needs to happen is they need a time machine and to not do any of the shit they've done for the past few months, maybe since the off season. There's a lot of healing that needs to be done in New York City, and that can only, I think, it's a wash, and you gotta figure some more existential shit out next off season.
All right, let's hit our last little bit of news here before we move to some fun topics. And that is that last night, we're recording on Wednesday, so Tuesday, in the games that occurred, there was a slew of injuries to not insignificant players. I'm going to read down the list of injured players who left games last night, and you each can pick one that you think is the most compelling in terms of impact or just interesting to you. Here we go. Sean Monahan leaves the game for the Blue Jackets. Philip Hedl leaves the game for the Rangers. Lyubushkin leaves the game for Dallas. Alex Lyon leaves the game for Detroit. Brock Faber leaves the game for Minnesota. Morrissey out in Winnipeg. Steven Stamkos and Evangelista for the Predators. And Zari for Calgary. Shayna, you get to go first. Who is the most compelling one that you want to talk about?
Brock Faber.
Go
Um,
on.
he is so excellent. And I know he's played through injury before. I think he played through like cracked ribs last year or something. Mike Russo reported it. But you look at that blue line, and like at the beginning of the year, they had a healthy blue line with Middleton, Faber, and then Spurgeon and Brodeen playing together. And they were lights out. And they have dealt with so many injuries since. Jake Middleton was on LTIR. He came back last night. Brodeen has been day to day at times. Spurgeon got hurt, came back. Now he's hurt again. And it just feels like anytime they're getting any progress on the injury front, they take a step back. So we don't know the severity of this one. We don't know what's going on yet, how long he's out, if it's a long-term thing. But I would be worried about it because I feel like he has become not just like a cornerstone of their defense, but their entire team. He's just like, he brings so much stability in such tough minutes that I wonder what they're going to do without him, because we saw Middleton last year really struggle without Spurgeon, and then this year they paired him with Faber and it just stabilized his game. Are you going to have one good pair? Are you expecting now Brodeen and Middleton to carry their own pairs? Because I don't know if I would trust that. And it just feels like the Wild have had so much progress and they're doing so well this year. And I feel like this could be the one thing. Like they're managing without Kaprizov, right? Like they've managed a lot. I think this could be like the nail in the coffin that really hurts their season
It'll be
if it's
interesting.
serious.
It'll be interesting because Vancouver, another team where we see the top pair goes out. Different situation, of course, but that really decimated their back end as well. Sara, which injury on the list are you most interested in?
Unfortunately, Sean Monahan. The Blue Jackets are squeezed into a wild card spot right now that they deserve because they've been there's been two pretty bad rough patches. But aside from that, I have been saying this all season, Alison, haven't I? That everybody needs to give them more respect and more credit because the rest of the East kind of is ass. And I guess they're like the top of the ass. Like they are actually like trying. And you can tell they're pretty consistent, especially at home. And they're one of the teams that most teams that are ass in this conversation were supposed to be good. They're supposed to be bad, and they are battling it out to be good compared to these teams in an opposite situation. And Monahan has had points in all four of his last four games, and that includes like three crucial assists in two games. Like he had 3 assists against the Blues, 3 assists against the Hurricanes, and he has been so dynamic this year. He's been kind of a leader on and off the ice and has had such a great, not a comeback. I don't want to call it that. I want to call it like, oh, we remember this guy and he's still that freaking good. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the Sean Monahan story of the year and has been such a huge steering role of having the Blue Jackets in the situation they're in. So I hope it doesn't affect them too much.
Yes, we hope only good things for Sean Monahan after all that's gone on this year. That team beating Pittsburgh, you guys, for the first time since 2015. It's insane.
That's
last
crazy.
night.
What?
It was, yeah, very, very strange. All right. So those injuries, we will continue to monitor them because obviously significant players. But let's end our Biddo news with some fun news. And that is that the PWHL Takeover Tour has begun. And it started in Seattle this weekend. It was an absolute blast. I loved it so much. Shayna, I know you were able to watch it. What was your take from afar?
I mean, the vibes just look so good. Like, I love the enthusiasm for it because I think, like, someone like, oh, how are Montreal and Boston fans going to get to Seattle? Like, that's not the point. That is not the point here. The point is growing the game, gauging the interest when you go there, or maybe if you're not super familiar with the PWHL and you take in a game in person, it's a good way to, like, spark your interest. And here it is, like, on the surface, if you're a casual fan, it's Hillary Knight versus Marie-Philippe Poulin. Like that is a marquee matchup. But then you get into it and you're just seeing like all these rising stars, like someone like Hannah Bilka, who, I mean, she's just crushing it right now at Boston. So
2 goals.
we love the growth. We love this like exciting atmosphere. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Takeover Tour. So it came through on the broadcast. I'm sure in person it was way, way, way better. But to me, it's just exciting, right? Like it's just cool to see, especially like teams, the NHL teams wanting to be a part of this.
Yeah, and it was cool. Actually, it was interesting because for people who didn't track this, Dan Bilesma was in Buffalo as head coach when the Buttes launched, when the NWHL launched way back when. And so his take too was he's like, it's not just exciting because the play is good. He's like, because the league is smaller, and obviously these players have played against each other, a lot of them in international competition. He's like, every game feels like it has a little more skin in it, like it's a little bit more playoffy because you're seeing all the teams all the time. So I thought that was interesting. Sara, were you able to take in any of the game or any of the festivities, and what were your thoughts?
I think the Kraken did such a fantastic job at this. I mean, they're so good at not just social media, but marketing in general, and then marketing like in the right way with like they actually give a shit. You know what I mean? You can tell. I loved seeing Jess Campbell do the puck drop, whatever they fucking call it. Sorry, I was looking at Joey Decord's Twitter because I wanted to share his tweet. He has an awesome Twitter account, but he said, awesome experience seeing all the fan support and watching Coach Campbell drop the puck at the PWHL official game in Seattle today. Huge shout out to the hometown PWHL Boston on getting the W over Montreal today. Yeah, he's awesome. And it goes a long way when players show their support like that. Like you see it in the NBA. It's like I want everybody to give a shit because it's a good product, right? It's not because like, oh, we're supporting the Little Women. No, it's because, hey, that's my coach. And it's all getting connected. And I love that. And I loved seeing Lexi Brown. I don't know. I just loved it all.
So good. It was so awesome. Such a great weekend. The first game I've ever seen from the stands at Climate Pledge Arena was that game. So it was a real blast for me. All right, you guys, we made it through Biddo News and we didn't even have to talk about the Canucks and all their drama. So I think we get a gold star. How about that? But one team we can't get away from. Shayna, what team is that?
The Maple Leafs.
Mary.
How does this affect the Leafs? It always does.
Shayna, Austin Matthews is back. He's back consistently. Tell the people what went on while Austin was away, and do we think he's going to be able to stick around now and not be in and out with what seems to be a recurring injury?
I mean, like the Maple Leafs are managing, I think, pretty well, right? Like with their injuries, with Austin Matthews being out, that's a team that could have fallen off a cliff both times he's been out, and they have managed really well. So I think that's good because sometimes a team gets over reliant on their star player. So this is a way to like, I guess, train everyone to be ready without him and get everybody else going that when he comes back in, you know he's going to be good. And he has been, right? But it's an interesting situation because we don't know that much about the injury. We know he suffered it in preseason. We know it's reoccurring. We know that he's gone for different forms of treatment for it, which I know like created a ton of buzz. But hey, like it's, you know, they're trying to do right by the player and let him lead the way with his recovery, I guess. Like I don't know. But it's going to be an interesting one how they manage it, right? Like we've seen injury management in the NHL for years. We've seen it in really bad ways, really good ways. Like, does the player not skate as much at morning skate or practices? Do they limit him on back-to-backs? Like, we'll see how it goes and how they deal with it because I feel like letting it get bad again and then having to pull him from multiple games maybe isn't the move. I wonder if there's a more proactive approach. Like, I really don't know here, but maybe we'll learn something about, you know, like about how to handle a reoccurring injury throughout the season from this. I don't know.
So, Sara, I'm big on what ifs today. If you were the general manager of the Maple Leafs,
Yeah.
do you, congratulations.
Thanks.
Would you be wanting Austin Matthews to sit out the Four Nations face-off?
No, we've seen time and time again what like lack of morale does. You know what I mean? This is a great opportunity to showcase the league, and it's something that the players really, really love and want to do. I think you can even come back if you think about this like you're in a secure relationship, right? Like go have friends that are girls, go speak to the other Canadian stars, find out some tips and tricks along the way or whatever, come back with some new strategies or like even treatments to whatever the weird ailment you have are. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a good opportunity to kind of like learn some things from that training staff maybe or whatever. And I think they're doing fine without him. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't say, oh, it's because Matthews sucks now or what, you know, like, no, we don't need to have a take about it, but they're finding the depth scoring they always needed with Matthew Nyes and like in the rest of the boys. They're finding, more importantly, really good defense, good goaltending, and more importantly, they aren't falling apart when they can't score 700 goals. And they are scoring 700 goals from Mitch Marner and William Nylander. So I'd say, yeah, Let the kid go. The kid.
Perfect. Perfect. The kid. The kid with the worst hairline of all the players in the NHL. Sorry, that was mean. I don't mean it that way.
Okay, Rogaine exists and he's rich, so we're good.
All right, let's move on to our hockey talk since we've given the Leafs their due. I have already put out on the socials my opinion on how long reviews are taking and the fact that I have had it with an offside call that happened at least one shift, if not longer, before a goal, having any sort of impact on a goal. This crept into World Juniors. It wasn't an offsides call, but the length of the review, it crept into a Rangers game. I've shared my thoughts. Would either of you like to talk about your current opinion on the state of in-game reviews in the NHL?
Yes.
Go.
Okay. I love the idea of coaches' challenges. I don't think we should get rid of them, right? It's the same thing as you can review a major penalty if you call it as such. I think that is a step in the right direction. It's just that the process needs work. And with offside plays, the biggest issue is one that you highlighted, Allison, on the Kraken broadcast, is how much time is spent in the offensive zone between that. Sometimes if there's a change in possession, like, shouldn't that be enough? If it's 30 seconds, shouldn't that be enough? Because you're going, how much hockey is going to be played? And then it's wiped off the board entirely. Like, what counts and what doesn't? And it just gets so convoluted. The other part of it is how long they take on these reviews. And the Ranger Capital game on Saturday was a really good example of it. And here was big national broadcast, and you were getting slowed down by a review. They took a timeout to review the play. I don't have an issue with that at all, right? Like, I know some were saying you shouldn't be able to do that. No problem with that. You have until the puck drops. If you want to use your timeout and take it away from yourselves, by all means do it. But like, I didn't even know, watching this game live, fully focused, no other games on, what the review was. I thought it was a missed stoppage for a high stick at first, which I was like, that's an odd one to call. But hey, if you can get that wiped off the board, why not? But it was so much earlier, it didn't make sense to me. Instead, it was an offside call. I think it was 17 seconds was the difference, or 16 seconds, which isn't as damning. But it took the officials so long to review this. They have all the camera angles, and maybe it takes some time to get them, but it's like, if the Capitals video coaches, and all of the credit in the world to them for this, right? They did an excellent job, and they did exactly what the rules say you can do. But I still don't like that it took that long. Do you have to have a cap on it? And you get into this whole argument of, should they get it right or just take the time you need? I'm almost inclined to say, in the regular season, there should be some sort of a cap. In the playoffs, in the final minute of play, in overtimes, or in the playoffs, do you want to expand that a little bit? I'm okay with that, right? Because if it's a play that's going to end the game, and I know you might be saying, well, that game could have been, that goal in the middle of the second period could be the game winner, but it doesn't feel as final. I don't know. I just feel like the intention of Coach's Challenge was not for these, is it off by 1/16th of a fucking millimeter versus something egregious, right? It was these egregious calls calling it. So I think that you need to find this middle ground somewhere, because I don't think anybody wants to see the game stop for this long, and you don't want to see plays that you have to be questioning the relevancy to the goal at that point.
Sara, do you have any thoughts? I didn't know exactly what time frame I was said should be the cutoff when I was on air, but since I've thought about it, I do think 45 seconds, because that would, in theory, usually involve a full shift. So that was kind of my thinking. Sara, do you have any thoughts?
I agree with that. I'm kind of a curmudgeon in general when it comes to this stuff, because it's too much discourse that it's kind of like, it's like society. Like, we have to argue about everything that used to just be things we'd accept. You know what I mean? Like, you used to not have the video stuff. So it's okay. This game isn't perfect. It's impossible to make it perfect. We are humans. That's kind of the beautiful thing about it. Like, not to be lame and corny, that this is like a live event where it's up to human error in certain things. We used to accept that. Now it's never going to be enough for anybody. So I just kind of wish we could go back, but we can't. So what now? I don't know.
All right, let's talk about a game. We were talking about things that are riling us up. Let's talk about something that didn't rile up anybody. And that was the Winter Classic, which instead of happening on New Year's Day, happened on New Year's Eve. It was arguably the least effort I've ever seen put into any game outfits by either team, respectfully. Although after I figured out what Chicago was trying to do, I thought it was cool. But I thought if you have to explain it that much, like you failed. And the game was bad. Sara, I know you wrote about this in your newsletter. Should it go back to January 1st? Do they need to get rid of the Winter Classic? What's the fix here?
I mean, it could have been two good teams, and it's not like anybody thought these were going to be the two best teams in the league or even close to the top when the decision was made. So you could do that. That would help. And it's kind of like it's supposed to be a whimsical, fun, novelty event. And you know, when the players know everyone's saying, oh my God, it's the Blackhawks again. Oh my God, we're the worst team in the league. We can't even, if we win, it's not even going to be fun because we still suck. You know what I mean? It needs to be like a team in a meaningful position, even if that's not the best team in the league. You need it to be like, I don't know, you can just see in their faces. And then it's like they had to face the media after. And it's like, oh my God, this is so fucking miserable. Like it was just, they're not having fun. And you can tell when they're not having fun. And the product on the TV, it's never going to be like amazing. And that's kind of the charm. But it seemed particularly bad this year, just kind of with this, the vantage points and stuff like that. I guess I won't get into that. It's also competing. I think it's impossible to not compete with something with the way trends are going with these marquee events in every single league. Like you got college football playoffs now on top of the bowl games. Like that's kind of being greedy. Every league is greedy, gluttonous now. So it just kind of is what it is. But that means you have to make the fucking event better. And this was, you're so right about the outfits, the fanfare. It's because who wants to promote this? They're going to get made fun of because why did you put these teams in?
And they use that ice for other games, particularly some college games, Ohio State women beating Wisconsin in an exciting shootout. So that game was fun. It certainly wasn't just the venue, but Shayna, the Winter Classic was also delayed by weather, and it wasn't at the time it was supposed to be. And again, for a million reasons, the ratings were in the basement. What would you do to fix the Winter Classic?
There's like a million things. Like, first of all, I get you want Connor Bedard in it, and you want one of the best players in the league that you expect to be of the future to be in it. But you're rushing it. Like he has a full career. This is not the moment. It felt all wrong considering where the Blackhawks are and where they are, like where they're going. Like we all knew where they were going last year, right? Like it's not like anyone expected them to suddenly be good. And it's the same with the Blues. So not only you're going with a team that, yes, they have a big market and in theory draw national attention because of Bedard, but like they're not there yet versus a team that you also know is not there yet, that you have run through these events too many times. So I think that was killer number one. The marketing was a bigger problem. I didn't even know it was on New Year's Eve until like 2 days before it. When it got mentioned to me, I had no idea. And I am someone that checks the schedule ahead every single week looking for the marquee matchups I want to watch because I try to plan what I'm going to write about it or whatever, like, or vice versa. Like I know what I'm watching based on, what I haven't, what I intend to write. And I still didn't know. I understand there were college football playoffs on New Year's Day, and I think it was a network thing. And I understand that because you have to maximize it. But New Year's Eve is such an overwhelming day. And I know they blocked off a couple hours for this in the NHL schedule. But between that and World Juniors and college football playoffs going on still, it just felt all wrong. So those were parts of the issues. But I think the whole thing is like, you could say, yes, they're oversaturating the market with outdoor games, right? Between the Stadium Series and the Winter Classic. I think everybody would agree. And I do like the idea of the Stadium Series being a little bit more fun and like easygoing with the Winter Classic being a bigger moment. But I think they need to turn it into a bigger moment consistently. Having the college hockey games is a start. And I think that there's a way, like they used to do the alumni games on the ice, and that made it so big. And it had that classic feel. It felt grander. And I feel like they're missing that. So I wonder what happens next year because we're seeing friend of the pod, David Dwork, report that the Florida Panthers are getting a Winter Classic next year. So that's step one. And I know people are going to bitch and moan and say, why is it the Panthers? That's not classic. I think their opponent's going to make it classic. I think they're going to go with an original six Northeast opponent for that game, and that's how they're going to give you that classic twist. And I think that's the way to do it with the old with the new, because there are certainly rivalries with certain teams in the Northeast that it'll make all the sense in the world. And yes, those teams have been involved in it before, but if you want a Winter Classic, it feels like you need that throwback in there. Instead of going with a Battle of Florida, I think they'll make up for the Battle of Florida a different way, with other outdoor games. So everyone's going to be happy here. But I think That's a good start by picking relevant teams, Stanley Cup champ, with a recent rival that they've had a good playoff series matchup with. I think that's going to help.
I it, I don't know. I think it's a mess. All right, let's move.
Should they
Let's
stop doing them? Like, do you think they should just stop the Winter Classic or stop the Stadium Series? Like, what do you think the solution is?
the thing is, it's it's all for the flair of it, right? Like, what if it's a meaningful game and the ice sucks? Do you know what I'm saying? And like, what if it's, you know, I don't like it's just and it to Sarah's point, like how do you pick two teams that you know are going to be good come January? Like, what if everything shits the bed and you don't know? I just maybe, I mean, I don't, is it part of like the All-Star break and it's a game that doesn't count? I don't know. I just, and
I don't think anyone will do it or pay attention to it then, though.
well, but I mean, I think local fans would for sure, because that's the whole point. You go like, because you can't see the game if you go.
Yeah.
You're just there to be there and to be there for part of the event, right? And people go to the All-Star game and that doesn't count. So
Me and Michael Bublé at last year's All-Star game, R.I.P. Can't tell you one thing that happened in the fucking game.
Well, like that, even like they're figuring out ways, they're talking to star players to fix the All-Star game. Maybe they should talk to Connor McDavid and say, how do we fix the Winter Classic? And it's funny too, because here's someone who, will he ever get involved in a Winter Classic? Or are they going to go, no, you get the Heritage Classic. You don't even get that.
So wait, though, who was he? Was it someone on Merrick's show? There was someone who recently said the reports of McDavid fixing the All-Star game were overblown. Like he basically said, I will get players to come and we will commit to bringing the energy level higher, but he did not help pick the events. Apparently that was like overblown. Someone was just on a
We can't
podcast
even
and
have
said this
good
from the
things. We
league.
can't even have good things. We want to say Connor McDavid is the party planner of the century. And it's
Dude, did you
like,
see their holiday photos? The man can't smile on Christmas, for goodness sake.
he doesn't want
Like,
wrinkles. I get it.
He's mewing.
he's sleeping on his back. Okay. All right, let's move on. Sara, you already alluded to this, so let's get each of your take again. I'm big on the if it's you situation. Here we are. There's a mushy middle in the East. We've got like 806 teams, all separated by 1 point or less, fighting for wild card. As Sara pointed out, after last night's win in Pittsburgh, although they have played 41 games, the second most in the East, excuse me, the third most in the East, the Columbus Blue Jackets sit in a wild card spot. And a team we had kind of written off for dead, the Montreal Canadiens, is just 1 point out of a wild card spot. And they have one game in hand on Columbus and a game in hand on some other teams ahead of them. If you had to pick which one, both or neither of Columbus and Montreal will be in the playoffs, Sara?
I think the Blue Jackets have a really, really good chance to be in the playoffs. I'm worried with Detroit coming up, but then there's people that could fall from the top. Like the Bruins are sucking. The Lightning are confusing. I think this is really like, I can't remember the last time the East bubble was such a shit show, but I think through the shit show, like I said earlier, the Blue Jackets have been one of the more consistent teams. Like they have won a lot at home. They've had their dips and they've just kind of figured it out every time where it's like, I will say the Canadians were not healthy and now they're healthy. I don't think they're totally there yet. I think they need a different goaltending situation, but it's fun to see them formulate their vibe, but just not yet.
Shayna, same question. One, both, neither in the playoffs this year.
I kind of say neither, but I
like
think
this. I like this. Go ahead.
I like that they're playing meaningful hockey.
Yeah.
And it's not just for like 2 games of the season. Like they're in a stretch, and I think it's going to stay that way. And I think that's really good for everybody, right? Like when you are trying to turn things around and rebuild your team, the problem is you get your ass kicked all the time. And we look at a team like, say, the Sharks, right? In the beginning of the year, we saw those meaningful games that they were staying in surprisingly. And oh, look, they're disrupting opponents. And then look at the stretch that they're going through right now. And I know goaltending has a lot to do with it, but it's not everything. So if you can play meaningful hockey at this time of year, that's great and wonderful. If you can play disruptor at the end of the year, that is great and wonderful. That is a necessary building block that you need to progress. I don't know if any of those teams are truly playoff caliber now, and maybe they will be because there's so much suckage in the fucking Eastern Conference and nobody wants that second spot. But if there is like a legitimate race and you're going to see these players and teams push for it, it's going to be interesting once you get to the deadline too, right? Like the Flyers last year,
Right.
because teams go, well, we know this is still the process over quick results. And I'm fine with that too, because I think you're going to have enough time between now and then just to train and play hockey a different way. I think that's a good thing for everyone.
I say, I say. I don't know. I'm going to say one of them makes it, but I don't know which one yet. That's how committed I am to this process. All right, let's move on to wrap up this episode with everybody's very favorite game, except for Stevens. He appreciated me making him the intro, so he finally had to listen to it. And we have had a lot of discussion about turning it down and listening all the way through, Shayna, so don't worry. But let's move on to Fuck, Marry, Kill. And it seems apropos that as Lane Hutson, a defender on the aforementioned Montreal Canadiens, moves into the lead for points for a rookie this season. Granted, there's been some injuries involved with others on this list. We're going to fuck, marry, kill the Calder Trophy with three of the leading candidates, as is tradition. Sara, you go first. Here you go. Fuck, marry, kill Michkov, Celebrini, and Hutson as your Calder winner this year.
It's so hard because I anticipate ending up voting for Celebrini, but it's Michkov for me right now. So I'm gonna marry Michkov. I the way he has fundamentally changed the complexion of the Flyers and their power play, especially just given the context and the history of the Flyers, where they've always needed like a top draft pick that can do something, and now they have one, and he really is panning out. And like, we love Torts. He has benched him, and the benching has been successful, but like he's kind of working with a unique situation when it comes to the coach not playing him a million minutes per game at times, and sometimes not playing him at all per game. So I think he's handling that well, and most wouldn't handle that well. So that's kind of what Torts want. Like that's what he's doing. That's what he wants. And Michkov is actually surviving Torts. So that's good. We're fucking Celebrini because he is awesome. He's making me watch the San Jose Sharks. He is doing crazy things out of thin air without kind of the supporting cast that I'd say Michkov has, which is why I think most people are trending Celebrini at this point. But after the injury, it's cool too. Like that gets in your head. You see a lot of guys in their rookie season get an injury and then they like wait till their second season to really turn it up. Celebrini was just itching to get out there and it didn't really change anything. And process of elimination, I'm just gonna have to kill Hudson right now. He's been awesome and he's been a huge reason for the vibe these Canadians have curated now, but it just hasn't, like it really is going to be a race down to the wire. But for now, the other two are just so good and like franchise shifting that it's making me pick them.
Shayna, your picks.
Okay, I'm gonna actually kill Michkov, and it's just
Ooh.
process of elimination because I really do like his game, and I think we're seeing that progress. I'm going to fuck Lane Hudson because I'm really impressed by him. And I think when he starts learning the defensive side of the game a little bit more, he's going to be such a difference maker. And you might make the argument, is he ever going to learn it? Not all offensive defensemen do. I do think he's going to. It's going to take him time. And I think the environment he's playing in has to be a part of it. But I think he has been a huge difference maker already for Montreal. And I think when you have highly talented players, sometimes you just need to focus on their strengths in the early goings, and then you figure out everything else. So I'm not really concerned. I'm going to marry Celebrini. He has been my pick from day one. He is unbelievable. He is so talented, and you are seeing it on a team that is not very talented. And I know that they, had those surprising wins while he was hurt earlier in the season, but the second he comes back in, you see how good he is. I know this last stretch of play has been tough for San Jose. He hasn't had a ton of points, but I'm not super worried. I think he's going to bounce back. I mean, a couple weeks ago, people are having the conversation, is Celebrini better than Bedard? Like, to me, he is going to win this award and I'm okay with it. But I love that there's actually a race because I think the Calder Trophy is one that's really hard because what are you measuring, right? Like, you're not going, is this the best defensive player? Is this the best, most valuable player? Like, there's so many different ways, and I think we struggle sometimes, especially when it's like forward versus defenseman, like it was with Faber and Bedard last year. But I think it could make for a really good race because you have three offensive players, and maybe like we'll all get better at this award.
All right, I'm going to, at the last second, change my picks because partially I want to be difficult, and also because as you talked, I've decided that I was going to marry Celebrini because I was going to make the point that you just touched on, Shayna, which is that if he was healthy the whole season, like the other two have been, that his point totals would probably lead the league as far as rookies, but he missed all those games at the start of the season after the first game he gets hurt. But now as we all know, as the advocate for defenders across the game, I am actually going to marry Lane Hutson because I think as a defender and a rookie, it's a much bigger ask in the league to come into this league. And I think he's dynamic and interesting and exciting. And I like what he's doing. So why not just be the one that's doing something completely off the grid? So I'm going to vote for the defender to marry. And therefore, I will have to fuck Celebrini because I do think he's just like everyone's watching Sharks games now for him. Like we're all watching, and they're fun to watch. Like it's wild. So, and then unfortunately, by Sara, you make amazing points. I almost wish I couldn't kill anybody.
I know it's difficult. That's what's so fun.
Yeah, but I will kill Michkov just because of process of elimination. But I would hate myself the whole time while I did it. All right, my friends, that ends this episode of Too Many Men. We are so back. We'll be back week in and week out, bringing you all of our takes, bringing you all of our hockey's thoughts. And in the meantime, you can catch up with us on social. We are on Twitter and Instagram at _2_much_man. That's the same handle. You can find us on YouTube, where it's youtube.com/@2_much_man. And if you are on Blue Sky, we are at 2-much-man because for some reason you can't have underscores in your handles on the Blue Sky. But here we are. All right. We encourage you to check out our merch as well at toomanymenmerch.com. The holidays may be over, but that doesn't mean shopping has to be. Check out all of our fun stuff. Get a new sweatshirt because it's really freaking cold in the East. Get a hat, get whatever you need. And until we talk again, please, we ask you to do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone in 2025. We will talk to you soon.
Love you.
Bye.